Hi everyone, welcome to the third webinar of a series of webinars conducted by TCS Online in lieu of the upcoming operational case study exams happening in August 2022. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for OCS at TCS. If you are yet to check out the first two webinars, we had recorded the two webinars and we have uploaded it on our website under the free content. So please go to the OCS page of our website and check out the free content under videos. Under the videos tab, you would find the recorded versions of the first two webinars. In webinar number one, we highlighted the technical nitty-gritties pertaining to the OCS exam so that you guys get familiarized with the technical nitty-gritties. And in the second webinar, I should say that the second webinar is an extremely important webinar because we highlighted answering technique, which is extremely beneficial for you at the real exam, because if you do not know how to answer your how to plan your answers, then you will not know how to gain marks. And on top of that, if you plan your answers appropriately, you won't run out of time at the real exam. Okay, so all these things we highlighted in the second webinar, and if you missed out on it, please go through our website and get your answering technique right. And as the name suggests, in today's webinar, I will be talking about what you need to do when it comes to preparing for the upcoming exam. There are certain things which you need to adhere to, and or certain things which you need to get right. And on top of that, I'll be also highlighting, I'll be especially focusing on what you need to do to develop confidence, because as per the CIMA examiner, confident students end up passing the exam comfortably. So, I'll be highlighting what you need to do to develop confidence, and on top of that, what you need to do to maintain your confidence at the real exam. So having said that, let's look at the session outcomes for tonight. First things first, I'll be taking you through examiner's comments. We are trying to figure out what the examiner expects out of you, what the requirements of the examiner, what these requirements are. So that's the first part of today's session. The second part is about, as I highlighted earlier, developing confidence, and I'll be highlighting how to maintain your confidence at the real exam as well. And the third part is about bouncing back from failure, because the results were released 2 or 3 days back. Some of you might have failed the exam, unfortunately, but there's nothing to worry, because I'm highlighting the common issues faced by students who failed the OCS exam and how you can overcome these mistakes by taking mitigatory action. All right, so these are the session outcomes. So first things first, let's move on to the first part of today's webinar, where we are trying to understand the examiner's comments, or we are trying to understand the psychology of the examiner, or the expectations of the examiner based on published examiner's comments. Okay, so first things first, the examiner gives us an indication about what type of answers students are supposed to provide in order to get good marks. So good answers require relevance to the requirement. So it's of utmost importance that you understand the exact requirement which is stipulated in the question. Most students lack the capability to understand the requirement properly, because most students are in a hurry to type answers. So that's the wrong approach. You should not do something like that. In our second webinar, answering technique, I've highlighted what you need to do, how to manage your time. So I suggested, if I give you a synopsis of what you're supposed to do, first things first, after reading the question, or after reading the requirement of the task, you need to allocate 15 minutes to come up with an answer plan. So you need to read the question and spend 15 minutes to think and develop an answer plan. After that, utilizing the remaining 25 minutes, you are just supposed to expand the answer plan and start typing your fully fledged answers. Okay, so relevance to requirement is extremely important. That's exactly why I've suggested that you develop answer plans. Then you have some time on your hands to figure out whether you had related to the requirement or whether you had covered all areas which are highlighted in the requirement. Okay, so that's the first thing which you need to focus on. And the examiner also highlights that students need to possess technical knowledge of syllabus content. You need to have a good understanding about E1, P1 and F1 related areas, especially P1 and F1. Okay, why a higher level of weightage or dominance is provided to P1 and F1 related areas relative to E1. So you need to know your P1 and F1 specifically. If not, you cannot pass this exam comfortably, because if you lack technical knowledge, you cannot pass the OCS exam, because OCS is the most technical subject out of the 3 case studies. The least technical is the last case study, which is the strategic case study, because there's a lot of practical decision making involved. But in here, at the operational level, you need to have a sound understanding about theoretical content. If not, you cannot pass the exam. And on top of that, just possessing this syllabus content, possessing knowledge taken from syllabus content won't help you. You need to have the ability to apply this knowledge to a given scenario which is highlighted in a question. So you get marks for application even at the operational level. All right. And on top of that, you are supposed to provide well-structured answers. So well-structured, in order to develop well-structured answers, it's mandatory that you develop answer plans. You spend some time to think and come up with better answers. And on top of that, the examiner also highlights that you are supposed to provide answers in paragraphs. I've seen students providing answers in bullet points or single-lined answers. You are not supposed to do it, because the examiner specifically mentions that you are supposed to provide answers in paragraphs. So if there are 9 answer points, then you need to have 9 paragraphs, and a paragraph consists of 2 to 4 sentences in length. Okay, and on top of that, if you are bringing in any argument, you need to justify each argument at all times, or because without a justification, the examiner is not in a position to give you full marks. Okay, so these are the things which you need to get right when developing good answers. So I've highlighted or covered all these areas in my second webinar. And as I told you earlier, it's extremely important that you go through this recorded version of the webinar if you missed it, because if you do not know a proper answering technique, then you can't manage your time appropriately and you can't come up with some quality answers at your real exam. Okay, then moving forward, the examiner also tells us to study all areas of the syllabus, as I highlighted earlier. You can't leave out any syllabus areas. I've seen tutors out there stipulating that certain parts of the syllabus can be left out. But, we have to always listen to the examiner, and the examiner wants you to study all areas of the syllabus. That's exactly why I said, if you lack knowledge in E1, P1 and F1 related areas, then you are not in a position to pass the OCS exam. And application to the scenario is of utmost importance. Just because you have knowledge pertaining to the theoretical content or the technical areas, if you do not know how to apply it to a given scenario or a question, if you do not know how to apply this technical content or theoretical knowledge to the company which is considered, then you won't end up getting good marks. Okay. And the examiner wants you to practice tasks as much as possible. You need to practice mock exams, not because I'm telling you to do it, but because the examiner wants you to practice. Okay. And the examiner also highlights, when practicing these mock exams, type or write full answers. So, this is another mistake, made by students. Students do not practice mock exams under simulated under a simulated exam environment. Okay. I've seen students, out of the 4 tasks, a set of students, what they do is they would attempt task number 1 today, task number 2 on another day, and likewise. So that's not what you're supposed to do. You need to sit in one place and go through all 4 tasks at a stretch, allocating 3 hours of your time. Okay, I've highlighted these things in my previous webinars, webinar number 1 as well as webinar number 2. So you are supposed to practice mock exams as per the examiner. And on top of that, when practicing mock exams, just doing certain subtasks or small questions won't help you. You need to practice fully fledged mock exams, which runs for 3 hours. You need to sit in one place and attempt the mock 3 hours at a stretch. Why? Because you need to get accustomed to real exam conditions. It's better to practice before rather than trying to figure out what you're supposed to do, or trying to come up with a routine at the real exam. Okay, so please listen to the examiner. Then during the exam, what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to plan your answers according to the examiner again. So that's exactly why I suggested that you need to come up with answer plans, allocate 15 minutes, come up with answer plans. And once you have an answer plan, it's pretty easy to type answers. So what I've seen is students, when you are trying to type your answer, you can't think, you can't multitask, you can't do 2 things at the same moment. So allocate 15 minutes to plan your answer, then utilize the remaining 25 minutes to type your answer. So when typing the answer, you are just supposed to expand your answer plan. Okay. And the marker is under strict instructions to mark answers on their merit. So the examiner picks quality over quantity. So although there is a word limit, a word count, best practice word count is there, which is 650 to 700 words per 45-minute task. Per task, the word count should be somewhere around 650 to 700. Although that best practice is there, at all times, the invigilator or the examiner gives you marks based on merit. So it's nothing to do with the word limit. To be honest, you would gain marks based on the quality of your answer, not the quantity. So please be mindful about these things and try to replicate these hints the examiner is providing, so that you have a better chance of passing the OCS exam in the next sitting. Right. So let's try to figure out the marking criteria. 2 markers will allocate marks before the final mark is finalized. Why is CIMA doing this? In order to make sure that they get rid of undue biases. And on top of that, marking is done in the most efficient and effective manner. Mark allocation for each subtask appears as a percentage under each requirement. So you would have seen it in your real exam, or else if you are doing the OCS exam for the first time, then I took you through a mini mock in webinar number 2, which happened last week. So in that, I highlighted what this is about, what these weightages are. And these weightages gives you an indication about how many marks are allocated for each and every subtask. And you need to consider these weightages because you need to know how many marks are allocated when it comes to developing your answer plans. Without having an idea about mark allocations, there's absolutely no point of writing your answers. You need to know how many points you're supposed to stipulate in your answer based on mark allocations for each and every subtask. So I'm inviting you to watch the recorded version of webinar 2 answering technique to figure out what this is about in a practical sense. And as I highlighted earlier, the marker or the invigilator allocates marks based on merit. So he or she picks quality over quantity at all times. Right. Then let's move on to the second part of today's webinar, which is about developing confidence. So I'm going to highlight what you need to do before the exam to develop your level of confidence, because as I stipulated at the very beginning of today's webinar, confident students end up passing the case study exams comfortably. Why? Because they had done their homework, and they don't have any stress in their minds because of that. So when you are not too stressful, then it's going to be extremely beneficial, because then you can think properly. Whenever a student is stressed, you can't think straight. Okay, so in order to think straight, in order to come up with better answers, in order to develop better answer plans, you need to have a positive mindset before the exam. So how do you build this positive mindset? I've highlighted 3 things which you need to do. First things first, stick to the study plan. We provided an 8-week study plan as part of webinar number 1. So refer to the video, the recorded version of webinar number 1, and refer to the study plan which we provided. You might think that the study plan is outdated because it was given about 2 weeks prior to this webinar, or 3 weeks prior to this webinar. Yes, that's true. However, in today's webinar, I'm highlighting another study plan, especially focused on students who failed the previous sitting. Okay, so don't worry too much about the study plan, because if you stick to the study plan which I'm providing tonight, then that's going to help you as well. If you had already stuck to the 8-week study plan, please proceed with it. And if you are yet to develop your own study plan or start preparations, then stick to the study plan which we are providing tonight. Okay, refer to the study plan. So that's the first step towards developing confidence. Then you need to stick to a routine. Waking up and sleeping, you need to stick to a routine. You just have something like 5 to 6 weeks to the exam. So I don't think that waking up and sleeping on time is for just 5 to 6 weeks is not going to be too hard, because if you do that, then this routine is going to help you with your studies. Because I know for a fact you have your corporate engagements, you have your job responsibilities, and on top of that you need to look after your family. Those type of responsibilities are there. So usually education becomes a burden when you have to look after your family, look after your jobs responsibilities and whatnot. So it's better to at least focused on the exam. It's better to stick to a routine, wake up at a stipulated time and sleep at a stipulated time. And on top of that, get your meals, or take your meal, or focus on your meal intakes. Stick to a routine when it comes to meal intakes as well. Okay, so have the breakfast at a stipulated time, lunch and dinner. Then you'd find it easier to wake up and sleep on time. This is extremely important, because closer to the exam, you'd feel a lot of stress. Most students, they do not sleep properly in the last 2 weeks or the last week leading up to the exam. That is not recommended, because you need to rest, you need to sleep, or else your brain won't function properly. You need to be psychologically and physically fit in order to perform at your best at a time pressured exam such as the operational case study. Okay, so please, if possible, try to stick to a routine, because it's going to help you immensely at the real exam. And what are you supposed to do when practicing mocks? Practice under simulated exam conditions. So I'm reiterating what I highlighted earlier. As I told you earlier, there's absolutely no point of breaking down different subtasks or tasks, and attempting each subtask in isolation. Rather than doing that, attempt the entire paper in one go, because you are supposed to do that at the real exam. So you need to find 3 hours, sit, isolate yourself. If somebody is there to disturb you, let them know that you are doing a mock exam. Sit in one place for 3 hours and try to give your best shot. And we had under webinar number 2, I've highlighted what you need to do when it comes to answer planning. So please stick to that answer planning technique. Please practice this answer planning technique. If you do that, then your life is going to become easier at the real exam. Okay, so when practicing mock exams, if you opt to purchase our value pack, then you would have access to the mock exam platform. So through that platform, you can attempt mock exams under real exam like conditions. Okay, and attempting mocks in isolation, as I highlighted earlier, and stick to the exam technique routine, 15 to 20 minutes to read and come up with an answer plan per each task, and 25 minutes should be allocated towards typing answers. Then you will never run out of time. So I'm highlighting, or I'm suggesting that you should attempt 5 mock exams at least. Okay, so each mock exam has 4 tasks. So 4 into 5, that's 20 tasks in total. That means that you had developed 20 answer plans. So that's enough practice for you to excel at the real exam, because then you would know how to manage your time, how to develop answer plans, how to structure your answers, and then you would know how much time is left for you to type the answer, which makes your life extremely easy. Okay, so this is what you need to do to develop confidence before the exam. So let's try to figure out what you are supposed to do to maintain your level of confidence on the day of the exam. So on the day of the exam, before you go into the exam hall, or before you attempt your real exam, rest your mind and body. This is of utmost importance, because you need to be physically and psychologically fit. If that is the case, you are in a better position to handle stress than a student who had not slept for a week, or who had not had a healthy lifestyle a week or two leading up to the exam. Do not refer to any study material, mocks, or answer plans. So on the day of the exam, let's assume the exam is at 10 a.m. You are not supposed to go through any study material, mocks, or answer plans. Why? Because I want you to go into the exam with an open mind. Because the CIMA examiner is trying to replicate a real life corporate environment. So in a real life corporate environment, until you open your email, you won't know what type of problems the company had faced. You won't know what type of suggestions you are supposed to make, or what type of recommendations you are supposed to make to your superiors. Okay, so there's absolutely no point of memorizing mock exams. Instead, just use mocks as a means of going through syllabus content, trying to figure out what type of answers you are supposed to provide. And on the day of the exam, before the exam, don't refer to any material, go with an open mind, then you can think properly. Okay, so that's a best practice which you should adhere to. And think that you are the finance officer at Meals at Home. Meals at Home is the company which is the case study is based on. So on the day of the exam, think that you are the finance officer, think that you are actually working for meals at home, because that helps. Then you'd view all questions in a professional manner, not as an exam, but as a real life um, 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 scenario. Okay. And if there is any negativity, try and let go of any negativity, because usually I myself, when I was a student, I could remember I was so stressed on the day of the exam, and I had this stomach ache every morning when I was walking into a CIMA exam. I had this stomach ache. That's because of the negativity which was there. But from the management level onwards, I changed my approach towards studying. So because of that, I did all my chunk of work way before the exam, and closer to the exam, my workload was extremely low. Because of that, I was able to develop confidence. Even if I felt some type of stress on the day of the exam, I was able to get rid of it, because I constantly reminded myself that I've done my homework and there's absolutely no point of worrying too much about the exam. Okay. And you have to be open-minded before the exam, as I highlighted earlier. And during the exam, what are you supposed to do to maintain your confidence? Again, stick to the exam technique routine, just like what you practiced when attempting the mock exams. You need to replicate the same thing. Yeah, if you practiced your mock exams properly, then replicating the answering technique is going to be a walk in the park at the real exam. So it's better to practice mocks, practice these answering technique when attempting 5 mock exams, rather than trying to come up with something new at the real exam. So stick to the exam technique routine. And it's pretty normal for you to feel stressed, because not all questions are going to be easy. Out of the 4 tasks, at least one task is going to be extremely hard. That's pretty normal. And you need to remember that the OCS exam is the most technical case study out of the 3. Because of that, OCS is considered as the hardest case study. You might be amazed to know that the easiest case study is the strategic case study, or your last case study, because technical knowledge is not tested too much at the SCS level. It's all about decision making, practical decision making. So you can come up with recommendations, any type of recommendation, as long as you have the capability of justifying it. So it's easy to pass SCS, but it's the hard OCS is the hardest exam out of the 3. So because of that, definitely when attempting the operational case study exam, you would feel stressed. If you feel stressed, first things first, drink some water, because that's going to calm your nerves. And on top of that, if you feel stressed, even after drinking some water, close your eyes and breathe slowly for 2 minutes. You might be thinking that you'd be wasting 2 minutes. Not exactly. This is time well spent, because once you relax, once you are focusing on your breathing for about 2 minutes, it helps your brain to relax. Because at an exam, there's a tendency for students to panic a lot. When you panic, there's too much going in your head. So it's better to take some time off, come back to normal, and re-attempt your exam. Then you'd feel that you have the capability of coming up with capability to come up with better answers. Because if you can think straight, then the quality of your answers are going to be extremely high. Okay. And remind yourself that you have done your homework. There's absolutely no point of stressing unnecessarily, or being or feeling negative unnecessarily. if you had done your homework. Okay, and remind yourself that you just need 80 marks to pass. Out of 150, you just need 80 marks. So even if there's a hard question, just give your best shot, try to give the best answer, then move forward. Don't let a hard question affect your performance when it comes to the rest when it comes to attempting the rest of the questions. Okay, give your best shot and be open minded. So that's what you need to do to maintain confidence when writing or attempting your real exam. All right, so let's look at what type of deflections you need to avoid when going to the exam in August. Overemphasis on exam blueprint. So students try to, I've seen so many students out there who try to memorize the exam blueprint and get everything right. Absolutely no point of doing that. Just stick to what we have highlighted. Just watch the 3 webinars, then you know what you need to do when it comes to preparing for your exam. And if you replicate the answering technique which we have highlighted, then you can get good marks. There's absolutely nothing to worry. And some students are always looking for predictions. You know, in my 10-year career as a CIMA tutor, I've come across so many students who are always asking about predictions. There's absolutely no point of doing this, because the examiner, as I highlighted earlier, the examiner wants you to study all syllabus areas, and the examiner has specifically stipulated that you cannot predict anything, because CIMA is trying to replicate a real life work environment, and in a real life work environment, you can't predict the type of problems the company would face. Okay, so that's another deflection which you need to avoid. And certain students are hell-bent on carrying out in-depth industry analysis. They are always asking for a pestle analysis, a SWOT analysis, Porter's 5 forces. These things are irrelevant, because you just need to have a simple understanding about the industry. So if you had invested on our paid content, then you would have access to our industry analysis slides. So just go through these industry analysis slides, then you would know all the nitty-gritties. You would have a good understanding about the industry dynamics. That would do. That's all that carries. The set of slides carries all you need to know about the industry on which this times case study is based on. And misguided use of past papers. Some students, what they do is they refer to past papers. That's totally fine. But what you need to remember is the past papers are based on different industries and different companies. Okay, so for instance, meals at home, this times case study is based on the food industry, food service sector. All right, but let's assume you go through some other case study which is not too relevant to the food industry or food service sector. So in such a context, the questions which you went through might not be too relevant to your exam. Okay, so misguided use of past papers, that's another deflection which you need to avoid, because just because you go through past papers, it does not mean that it's going to be too relevant to the case study which you are facing in August. And another problem is information overload. This happens when you purchase content or study content from multiple providers. I've seen so many students doing this, because I understand why you do it, because you try to gain exposure as much as possible. You are trying to do many questions as possible. However, this leads to information overload. So this needs to be avoided. There's absolutely no point of going through hordes and hordes of additional content. Absolutely no point of going through chunks and chunks of questions and answers. if you cannot replicate the answering technique which we highlighted in webinar number 2. So rather than doing all these things, just get your technique right, then you are in a better position to pass the OCS exam. All right, so we are moving on to the third area of tonight's webinar, which is about bouncing back from failure. Okay, so there could be a set of students who had, attempted OCS for the first time last May and ended up failing. Or there could be students who had attempted OCS on multiple occasions. Okay, so you need to get these things. You need to practice these things in order to make sure that you do not end up failing once more in August. Okay, so you need to figure out whether you gave your best or not. Okay, you need to be engaged with a personal reflection, because you are your, so if I'm being honest with you, you are your best critique. You know what went wrong, you know what you did and what you missed out on. Okay, so just sit, get a piece of paper and try to write down what went wrong in the sitting in May. Okay, because you need to get rid of all these shortcomings if you are to pass this time. Okay, where did you go wrong in the exam? Need to diagnose the reasons first and address them this time, or else you would be repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Refer to the mini mocks and suggested answers as well as the examiner's report to figure out what type of answers you are supposed to develop. And when you were developing your answers, what type of answers you developed. Okay, so by going through the suggested answers, you are in a better position to figure out what type of answers or the quality of answers you are supposed to provide, as opposed to providing answers in bullet points or single lined sentences. Okay, and you can ask yourself this question, whether you got feedback on your mock exam answer scripts. If not, it's recommended that you go for it this time, because especially if you had gotten marks which is less than 60, then there's something really wrong in your answers. Usually students who get less than 60 marks, they lack knowledge about E1, P1 and F1 related areas. So if you lack knowledge about this theoretical content, you cannot pass the OCS exam, however much time you repeat it. Okay, so let's look at the other set of students who had gotten more than 60 marks. Even if you got more than 60 marks, still you failed. And these students, what's wrong could be their answering technique. Okay, so both these types of students, those who got less than 60 and those who got more than 60 but still ended up failing, what you can do is you can opt for personalized feedback on your mocks. Then we are in a position to figure out whether you need to brush up your knowledge with regards to technical content pertinent to E1, P1 and F1, or whether you need to develop your answering technique. Okay, and based on that, based on understanding your shortcomings, you need to come up with an action plan, and the action plan should be to work harder and smarter than the previous attempt. Okay, so if you missed out on your study deadlines, you can't do it this time. You need to stick to your study deadlines, so you might have to work a bit hard, and it's better to work smart as well. So how do you work smart? Refer to the free content which we are providing, refer to the webinars which we have conducted, rewatch the webinars if needed, especially the second webinar. Then you'd know how to work smarter as a student who is preparing for the OCS sitting in August. Right. So let me also mention the common reasons for failure. All right, because you might be trying to figure out what went wrong on your own. So it's better if I can provide some some reasons for failure, then it makes your life easier to figure out whether you did any of these mistakes. If that is the case, you need to do everything at your disposal to get rid of these mistakes. Okay, right. So practicing just 2 or 3 mocks, so many students out there, this is what they do because they do not prepare themselves properly. They run out of time because of that 2 or 3 weeks uh, or 2 or 3 weeks closer to the exam, they start attempting mock exams, so they don't have enough time to attempt 5 mock exams. So because of that, they end up doing 2 or 3 mock exams instead. As I told you earlier, OCS is the hardest case study. Why? Because technical knowledge is tested. 80% of the time, the questions are based on technical knowledge. And as you know, the syllabuses, out of the 3 stages, the syllabuses in E1, P1, F1 are the largest. So the syllabus content is extremely heavy at the operational level. So when you do just 3 mock exams, you can't cover all possible syllabus areas. If you are to cover all possible syllabus areas, then you need to practice 5 mock exams. Okay, so please be mindful about it. If you did just 2 or 3 mocks last time, you can't do the same thing this time. You need to do 5 mock exams, or else you can't cover all syllabus areas because the syllabus is huge at the operational level. Okay, and the second problem could be not practicing mocks under simulated exam conditions. I highlighted this point earlier as well. So rather than attempting a mock 3 hours at a stretch, if you try to break it down, if you attempt subtask by subtask, it's not going to help you at the real exam. It's better to get yourself accustomed to sitting in one place for 3 hours and writing your answers. It's better to get yourself accustomed to the answering technique, the time plan which we had provided, or else you'd be trying something new at the real exam. So rather than trying something new, stick to a routine before the exam. Practice 5 exams and practice under simulated exam conditions. Then it's going to be then you are going to find the real exam to be extremely easy to tackle. Okay, and lack of technical knowledge, this is a killer, especially when you consider students who are coming from the exemption route. So there are a set of students coming through the FLP route. So they have not done the OTQs for E1, P1 and F1. So most FLP students lack a proper understanding, a sound level of knowledge about theoretical content. And these theoretical or technical areas are tested at the operational level. And without technical knowledge, you can't pass the exam. That's exactly why you got marks which is less than 60. Okay, and on top of that, there are another set of students coming through another exemption route, where you are just supposed to do the E1 examination, OTQ exam, and P1 and F1 papers are exempted. So a higher level of weightage is provided for P1 and F1 at the operational case study level. So if you do not know your P1 and F1 appropriately, if you do not know your technical knowledge, then you can never pass the OCS exam. SCS, yes, you can, but not OCS. Okay, so if you feel that you lack technical knowledge, it's high time you brush up your knowledge, or else you'd keep on failing the operational case study exam. Okay, and there could be shortcomings in application of knowledge. Just because you know your E1, P1 and F1, it does not mean that you're going to get very good marks at the OCS level, because you need to know how to apply your knowledge. Certain area where this is tested is especially when it comes to KPIs, suggesting KPIs. So you can't teach KPIs to anyone. So if you learn what KPIs are under E1 and P1, okay. However, whenever, when a KPI related question is presented at the exam, students struggle. Why? Although they have learned it, they do not know how to apply it in a practical way, right? That's exactly why you need to go through the mock exams which we had developed, not just our mock exams. If you had invested on some other provider, you are totally fine. Please go through the suggested answers and build or develop answer plans based on suggested answers. So I asked you to attempt 5 mock exams. Okay. Each mock exam comes with a suggested answer. So you would be practicing developing or practicing answer planning techniques while attempting your mock exam. And after attempting the mock exam, based on the suggested answer, develop your own answer plan. So closer to the exam, you have short notes of all your suggested answers. When you have that, you can easily figure out the structure of the answers, the content of the answers, and how knowledge, theoretical knowledge, has been applied to a given exam scenario. Okay, so please be mindful to do these things, um, or else you keep on replicating your issues or mistakes, and that is not too good, because you can't pass the exam if you keep on replicating the same mistakes. And inappropriate answering technique, as I told you earlier, most students, first things first, they read the question. Right after reading the question, they are in a hurry to type answers. So that should be avoided. Stick to our answering technique, spend some time to think, because if you really look at it, in your corporate environments, once you receive an email from your boss, you are not going to type the answer straight away. You are going to structure the answer and take some time and come up with a proper response to your manager. If not, you're going to get blamed by your manager, or else you would get, if you keep on doing the same thing, you would get kicked out of the company. Okay. And when you are doing the same thing at the exam, you keep on failing the exam, because the CIMA examiner is not going to pass you just because you give thousands and thousands of worded answers. Okay. So stick to the answering technique. If you have, if in the previous sitting, if you just read the question and straight away started typing answers thinking that you are going to run out of time, don't do it this time, because it's highly probable that you might end up failing the exam again. And mismanagement of time is another problem. So if you focus on our answering technique, you won't run out of time as well. Okay. And lack of evaluation, this is another problem faced by students, especially those who are not seeking feedback for their answers, or students who are involved with self-studies. Okay. So you need to always compare your answer with that of the suggested answer, or else you are not in a position to figure out where you had gone wrong. Okay. So you are supposed to sit in one place, attempt a mock exam 3 hours at a stretch. After you do that, you are supposed to compare your answer to that of the suggested answer. Then you are in a position to figure out your shortcomings, and you need to maybe re-attempt the mock again to figure out whether your answers have improved and whatnot. Okay, so that's what you need to do. And not adhering to a study plan is a killer as well. Most students, as I highlighted earlier, work towards the very end of the exam, or during the last week, you try to do everything under the sun, but that's not going to work. Okay, you need to stick to a study plan. All right. So for all these problems, we have solutions. Okay. So please watch our webinars. Then you'd figure out what you can do or what you need to do to improve yourselves and stop failing again and again. Right. So if you couldn't clear the OCS exam in May, we are providing a revised study plan, a 6-week study plan. So I've highlighted what you need to do on a week by week basis. Okay, so please go through this leisurely. Try to figure out whether it fits your plan. So what I've highlighted is I've tried to make sure that in the earlier weeks you work a bit harder, and closer to the exam your workload should decrease. So that's what I've kept in mind when developing this study plan. Okay, so in week number 1, you are supposed to read the annotated pre-scene and watch the pre-scene analysis videos, 4 videos in total. That's all you need to understand all the nitty-gritties pertaining to the pre-scene. And you are supposed to watch the recorded video of OCS webinar 2 answering technique before you start attempting mock exams, because you need to get your answering technique right. Okay, after watching that, attempt mock number 1 under simulated exam conditions. So that means you need to stick in, sit in one place and attempt a 3-hour mock at a stretch. And after the mock exam is attempted, you can develop answer plans based on suggested answers of mock 1. So you are actually summarizing the suggested answer of each and every mock. So that's what you're supposed to do in week number 1. Okay, in week number 2, you are supposed to refer to P1 theory recap slides. If you feel that you need to go through theory recaps, okay, you can do that. And attempt mock number 2 under simulated conditions, exam conditions, and develop answer plans. So likewise, you go on, and in week number 3, you go through F1 and attempt mock number 3, develop answer plans. And if you go for, if you seek for personalized feedback, then refer to personalized tutor feedback for mock number 3. So even if you have not purchased our study material, that's totally fine. Just try to reach out to the study partner, to your study partner, and try to figure out whether they provide personalized tutor feedback to your answers. If you had failed last time, it's better to opt for this, because you need to really figure out what's wrong with your answers, because you might not be in a position to really understand how you are supposed to improve your answers or what's wrong with your answers. So it's better to listen to someone who's trained in evaluating CIMA case study answers. So you keep on doing the same thing over and over again, mock number 4 and mock number 5. And in the last week leading up to the exam, you're not supposed to do anything. So I told you, most of the students who end up failing, they work extremely hard during the last week, but according to this study plan, in the last week you are not supposed to attempt any mocks. You are just supposed to go through additional material, refer to additional material, the financial analysis slides, industry analysis slides, and the top 10 issue slides. These are really concise. It won't take a lot of time, too much of your time, to go through these slides or additional content. Refer to the answer plans of all 5 mocks. So rather than attempting the mock exams, you are going through the mock exams again. You are going through the study summaries based on the suggested answers of mock exams. Then you'd know the content and the structure of each and every question, or each and every answer, to be precise. And read the annotated pre-scene one last time, and stop all work a day prior to the exam. Sleep, eat, and rest well. So if you are taking up your exam on the 10th of August, on the 9th of August, you are not supposed to do anything. Don't go through any study content or study material. Just relax, because as I highlighted earlier, you need to have a high level of confidence. In order to have this high level of confidence, you need to have an open mind. In order to develop an open mind, you need to rest yourself a day prior to the exam. So rather than cramming information closer to the exam, you are supposed to relax from the 7th August up until your examination date. And when attempting mock exams, what you can do is, let's assume that we leave out Monday because Mondays are hectic. Tuesday, you do mock number 3. Wednesday, you develop the answer plan or the answer summary based on the suggested answers of mock number 3. And by Thursday, if you opt for personalized feedback, by Thursday you'd get your feedback, right? So you have ample time left. You have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday left to improve your answers. So what are you supposed to do? Tuesday, you attempt mock number 3. Wednesday, you develop the answer plan based on the suggested answer. By Thursday, you'd get our feedback if you opt for it. Okay, then you are in a position to figure out what's wrong with your answers. And in the remaining 3 days of the week, you can, if your typing speed is bad, you can work on your typing speed. If your answer structures are bad, you can focus on answer planning technique. If you run out of time, then you can come up with mitigatory action or remedial action and try and figure out how to get rid of this problem. If the quality of your answers are not too good, then you can go through the answer plans again. Or if you feel that you got really low marks, when you look at our feedback, let's assume you got 40 marks out of 150, that's an extremely low mark. Then what you can do is maybe on a Saturday or a Sunday, you can re-attempt the same mock. So on a week by week basis, you can move from one mock to another. So by the end of the 5th week, you are done with 5 mock exams. You are done with answer plans for 5 mock exams. If you feel that you want to re-attempt the mocks, you have done it again and again. So closer to the exam, you just need to relax. Okay, so please stick to the study plan. If you do if you stick to the study plan, and if you adhere to the technique which we have highlighted throughout this webinar series, then you have a higher chance of performing really well at the real exam. All right, so you might be attempting the exam at home given the COVID-19 pandemic. So if that is the case, please refer to the CIMA examination information page. Go to this link and check it out. Read the content thoroughly before the exam and try out the CIMA exam platform by following the guidelines mentioned. So just go through the CIMA exam platform because it's better to get to know the exam platform way before the exam. All right. Okay. So let me talk about what we are offering at TCS. We offer 2 packages basically. Number 1 is the essential pack. If you purchase the essential pack, you would get your hands on the full pre-scene analysis videos, 4 videos in total. Video number 1 is about an introduction to the pre-scene. Video number 2 is focused on company dynamics. Video number 3 is about an industry analysis, and video number 4 is focused on the financial statements, thereby conducting a financial analysis. Okay, then you would get your hands on the annotated pre-scene. So this is what an annotated pre-scene looks like. So I've highlighted all the necessary information in an extremely concise manner, so that you are supposed to just remember all these points which I've made, then you know your pre-scene, right? And you'd get your hands on the industry analysis slides, financial analysis slides, top 10 likely issues, the OCS familiarization kit, and most importantly, the 5 exam standard mock exams and suggested answers based on which you need to practice and develop your short notes or answer plans. And you'd have access to the WhatsApp discussion forum as well. So from the coming week onwards, I'll be focusing more on theoretical content via the WhatsApp discussion forum because we are done with the technical nitty-gritties via the webinars. And if you purchase the essential pack, you would have a pass guarantee. If you end up failing the exam after using our services, you would have access to the study material pertaining to your subsequent sitting free of charge. So for all these things, the investment is going to be £99. And you should opt for the essential pack if you're comfortable with self studies, and if you had aced your OTQ exams, then, and if you are attempting OCS for the first time, and if you are a confident student, you can simply go for the essential pack. Let's look at the second type of package which we are offering, which is known as the value pack. So you'd have access to everything which is under the essential pack. On top of that, you'd have access to the online mock exam platform, because I highlighted, as per the examiner, you are supposed to practice mocks under simulated exam conditions. So we had prepared our own exam platform. So you can attempt all 5 mocks within the exam platform, which makes your life easier when it comes to managing time, because once you run out of time, you can't go back and change your answers and whatnot, just like in your real exam. If you attempt the 5 mock exams under our mock exam platform. And we are providing professional marking and feedback on 3 mocks, namely mocks 3, 4, and 5. And that's what we have highlighted in our study plan, which we highlighted tonight. And on top of that, you'd get your hands on the theory recaps for E1, F1, and P1. Our theory recaps are extremely concise and easy to understand. And on top of that, all these theory recaps are downloadable. So by going through these areas, going through these slides, then you are in a position to figure out or polish up your knowledge with regards to the technicalities or the technical syllabus content pertaining to OCS. So that's the value pack, and the investment is £199. And you should opt for the value pack, especially if you are returning to CIMA studies after a prolonged study break, if you struggled with your OTQ examinations, or if you had failed your OCS exam previously, then it's better to go for the value pack. And even if you are attempting the OCS exam for the first time, if you are coming through an exemption route, especially if you're coming through the FLP route, or if you had done just E1 and left out, if F1 and P1 were exempted, please go for the value pack, because you need to know your theoretical content or technical knowledge. And I highlighted that point earlier as well. The CIMA examiner tells us that you need to have a sound knowledge about all these theoretical areas. So it's better to go for the value pack. And even if you do not purchase our services, that's totally fine. Go through the free content which we have provided by checking out our website. So our website is this. Go to the OCS page and click. It says click here to access free content. So by clicking here, you can access free content. So the free content comprises of the recorded versions of the 3 webinars. One of the pre-scene analysis videos out of the 4, you would get access to one. And on top of that, you would get access to a free mini mock and a suggested answer. Okay, so I invite you guys to go through our free content. And on top of that, you can, if you want to invest on an essential pack or value pack, you can purchase directly from the website itself. And before purchasing any of our services, you can simply go through the FAQ section and just click on the sample material and see what type of content you are getting your hands on. Then if you are satisfied with the content which we are providing, please go ahead with the purchase. Yeah, and let me talk about the type of feedback which we provide. So we provide in-depth feedback. As you can see, these annotations, these are the feedback which I provided to one of the students. Okay, and at the very end, we provide mark breakdowns so that you are in a position to better understand the mark allocations and how much marks you have gained. And at the very end, we provide general comments as well. All right, so that being said, any questions, guys? Any issues you need to discuss, especially If you failed last time, you might have issues in your head. It's better to clear them off right now. So if you do not feel confident of switching on the mic and raising your concern, you can simply mention it on the chat section. I'm happy to help you guys out. Any questions, folks? Any doubts? Seems like there aren't any more questions. So because of that, I'm gonna end tonight's session. Before I end the session, let me talk about how you can contact us. You can simply drop us a message via our website, or send us an email, or drop us a message via WhatsApp. And you can follow us on our social media handles. We have a separate group for OCS in our Facebook group, Facebook channel to be precise. And all these recorded versions of the webinars are uploaded onto the YouTube, so you can go check it out. And please go through the blog posts as well, because it consists of important information about technicalities pertaining to the case studies. And on top of that, the mistakes and what you need to do to get rid of these mistakes and whatnot. Okay. All right. So having said that, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for being part of all 3 webinars. If you missed out on any of the webinars, please, go through them and try to stick to our study plan. And if there are any concerns, if you want to brush up your knowledge, or if there are any concerns about this time's case study, please drop us a message on the OCS WhatsApp group. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Okay. Having said that, thank you very much for joining in, and all the very best for the upcoming exam. Thanks again, and good night.